Welcome to Washington Football Week with your host, one half of that dynamic duo, Sean Spencer, and South Carolina's finest, Will Craven.
Don't play us if you're undefeated.
Where we celebrate past success while looking to a bright future. There's a youth movement in Washington, and they're ready to take the reins, led by fire.
Play aggressive.
It's a new day, a new dawn. No longer the laughing stock. It's time to take them. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? It is your boy, Sean Spencer, one half of that dynamic duo that's Let's Talk Football, and one half of that terrific tag team that is Washington Football Weekly. And no, it's not Wednesday, ladies and gentlemen. It's Thursday. Happy Thursday for you. You see who I'm with. My guy, South Carolina's finest, where it's a little chilly down there, if I'm not mistaken. Will Kramer. What up, Will?
Oh man, it has been chilly. It's we avoided the snow, but yeah, it's been cold. It's not fun.
No. You thought you had left Northern Virginia behind, but Northern Virginia came to you.
A little bit.
Yeah, my mom called me. She was like, "Oh yeah, we got snow." I was like, "We got a dusting this time." Sorry about that.
Yeah, North Carolina got hit with stuff. The Virginia Beach area, Anton's got crushed.
Yeah, craziness, absolutely craziness. I, for one, am glad we didn't get hit with all the snow this time, but hey, that's just me. Look, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is Washington Football Weekly. We are in the 7th season. We are in the off season, our favorite time of the year. Last week, we kind of talked about the team, talked about the Super Bowl, and a couple things that, we may potentially want to emulate from Philly and kind of where do we go from here. But Will, today, we did get to it last week, but we still wanted to address it. The season is over, but it was such a good season. It really was. I talked about it last week that I hate myself because I was bickering and doing this and trying to control Let's Talk Football, doing all these different things, that it took me a while to really appreciate what was happening. But this season had so many beautiful moments, Will.
It did. 12 wins was not what any of us could expect. Winning 5 of your last 6 games because of on the last possession, it's extremely exciting. But it was a really fun season to be part of. You could sit on your couch, you could get into the game, but you could also just sort of enjoy knowing we've got ourselves a squad. We've got ourselves a quarterback out there. And it wasn't this maddening game that we used to have where there was opportunities to make plays and we would get sacked or we would overthrow the ball or we dropped the pass. It was they were executing out there, and it was refreshing to watch.
I mean, and honestly, it genuinely was, because, and that's the funny thing. When I look back at the fact that some of the things I was arguing about, it was like, Sean, we won. Who cares? It doesn't matter who got it done.
Thank you. I would read your post-game analysis at times and been like, you are obsessing over the wrong things right now. You were screaming about how our quarterback in his very first game didn't have pocket presence and ran the ball too much.
I definitely did. But that's what makes it better to go back and watch, because you can watch it with a clear head. And now it's like, oh my goodness, look how good he is, even in his bad moments and things like that. Yeah. So Will, let's go ahead and go into it. Let's talk about it. The favorite moments from this season, like you talked about 12 wins, and there's so many different moments to choose from. What's your first favorite moment that you can think back about the season?
Bengals on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, He took mine. That
No,
tells you
Bart. And well, so what got it for me was because we have been so bad for so long on Monday Night Football, and our team came to play. And the very first like quarter of the game, it's been a while since I've seen it. It was like a back and forth. They could score, but we could score.
Yes.
They would score, we would score, and then we would score again, and then we scored again. And it was like we were just showing them like, hey, we got a game plan, and you can't stop us right now on offense or them on defense. And that's what was so much fun, along with the Terry touchdown at the end. But it was just, that was an exciting game on the national stage. And it's like, we might have ourselves something here. We might have ourselves something here.
Oh, yeah. No. And I mean, the first thought that came to my mind was, in that game, it felt like it was anything you can do, I can do better. And it was like Burrow hits Chase for a touchdown. All of a sudden we come back. And like you were saying, it's blow for blow. Like we're going. And then we had that like, okay, we're distancing ourselves. We're making a little cushion. Wow, this is not to be expected. But the first time that we had seen him under the lights, the first time all the intentions on him, you have another Heisman Trophy winning quarterback on the other side. I mean, the storylines could not have been drawn up any better. And I loved it. He shined. And that was the first time. And, because like you said, after that first game, I was, look at him. He's not that. That was the first time where I got hit in the face with like, you guys got here. You guys got something. And we're going to mention, we have another topic when we know J5 was it. This, I'm just going to let it out there. Yeah. This was it for me too.
Same game.
It was just such a great showing. And to your point, that touchdown at the end dropped it right in the basket. And it was kind of like, damn. Like you just literally sat back and said, damn.
Yes.
This guy is good.
Yes. That is the reaction. And like to the point where like even Bengals fans could be like, wow, what are we going to do?
Right. And now people still tried to take a little bit away. Oh, the Bengals start slow. They struggle early in the year. Their defense isn't X, Y, and Z. So, okay, fine. My second moment I loved it. And I talked to you guys about it with the tie when we played the Browns in that game, albeit the score was, I think, 34-13. So 3 scores. Yes. But we blew them out. I mean, we totally wiped them out. And the best part about it, my favorite moment, was when Mariota came in, because I'm just like, when is the last time that we've had a backup quarterback come in because the game is already out of reach? Yes. We've already won the game. And that to me kind of solidified the fact that, we got a team. It's not just offense. It's not just deep. Now, mind you, Cleveland didn't do anything to help themselves. You know what I mean? But we can go back to the last time we played them when we had Carson Wentz a couple of years before. They didn't do anything to help themselves in that game, and what we couldn't get out of our own way. And this one, we did so well, even with them kind of figuring out, maybe, I don't want to say putting the blueprint in, but knowing, make Jaden keep the ball, make him run. Some of the things that Jaden ended up struggling with later on were some of the things that Cleveland showed up and showed out with. So that game to me was that first one that said, okay, they have good players. This is a solid team. Maybe not how they were playing at the time, but still, we beat them handily. Like Mariota came in, and then Mariota even did decent. And remember, that was the one I messaged you guys where I was like, I jumped up and down and I was screaming. Then I had to sit down like, oh, I'm getting a little dizzy here. Like, what is happening? But yeah, that was another one for me, man.
I have that game. I have the Cardinals, Browns, Panthers, and Titans games all listed as the same thing, blowouts. Yes. Winnable games that they made, no doubt about it. And early on, by the end of the first quarter, it was like, all right, we good. Yep. We got this. We're not having the usual, like, we should beat these guys. Why are we playing like we're hungover right now? Type game. And that too, it was just like, this team is this where I started to really like fall for the coaching staff, because they had them prepared. They had them with a scheme that could attack it. Against the Browns, we were worried about Myles Garrett. We were worried about some of their individual players that could hurt us in positions that we're not strong. And They took care of all that. The scheme took care of all that. Garrett didn't have a single sack. He barely had any pressures. Their wide receivers did nothing against us on defense. It's like, so that's where it was really much like, all right, we've got players who can play. We got coaches who can come up with some schemes. We got ourselves a quarterback. Like this is a fun ride.
Yes. And to your point, win the games we're supposed to win, which sounds easy enough. But if you've been a Washington fan for as long as we have, those are the games that we find a way normally to lose in the past. But doing that this year was amazing. What else you got?
My only other one was the Eagles game at home.
Yeah.
Because, I get amped up a little bit more for Eagles games. I actually take the Eagles games more serious than the Dallas game. But I think it's Eagles fans, all that, and I get them hitting me, blowing up my phone. So the fact that we had 5 turnovers and we kept getting at it, and the fact that it was literally Jaden just taking the team on his back and to be like, all right, you can't run the ball, I'll do it. I'll drive us every time. If the receivers aren't open, I'll run it. If it's a running play that's not going to work, I'm just going to run it myself. And that was a fun game. Plus, you and me love Jamison Crowder. So the fact that we were able to, see him score the winning touchdown, like that just made me feel good. Like, yes, Crowder got it, so it was fun.
One of those who was hurt, and I remember thinking when he came back, I was like, we still have him? Because he had been down for so long, we didn't know. And it was like, oh, yes, this is good. I'll put him as number 2. I like that. Mm-hmm. Before I give you my last one, I'm going to give you my honorable mention. And that is, matter of fact, I'll just go show it.
And it's going to be getting longer by the second. You're all the way back at the 30-yard line. Now you can step into it. Here comes the Hail Mary with the game on the line. And the ball is caught! It's a miracle!
Anyone that saw this season, even if you did not see the game, that has got to be one of the top moments, if not the top moment for most people in-house in Washington. Mm-hmm. That was a moment where he stole a victory from the Jaws' defeat. It was beautiful. Funny story about that game. I think I've told you this, Will. What I alluded to earlier was that I didn't get to appreciate this year because there was a lot of times where I was bickering with people back and forth. Before this game, I was bickering with Washington fans about how, Jaden, he's this, he's that, but he still struggles. He's still this, he's still that. Then I was bickering with Bears fans because I was like, you guys want to get rid of your coach, but he's not really that bad, blah, 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 blah. I got myself so wound up before this game that I took a nap in pregame and I slept through the whole thing. I had people messaging me, blowing up my phone, posting on Facebook, oh my God, congratulations, da, 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 da. And I woke up and I was like, oh, we won. People were just blowing me up and I missed the whole thing. So part of the season I had to deal with myself because I don't know if I would have been able to deal with that. Because to go up 12-0 and then to completely fall off and have the Bears come all the way back to that very last second to then have that happen, I'm almost glad that I completely missed it. But it was one of those things where it was like, dang, like that's not going to happen again. That's one of those moments where where you say, where were you when? And I can say I was in my bed asleep because I was having a little tantrum. So I'll admit I was wrong for that, but I love that clip. And I mean, any Washington fan's going to say that was one of the moments.
Well, and so the reason why I didn't put that as one of my favorite moments is exactly what you talked about. The fact that we outplayed them for the entire game. They scored with 50 seconds left to take the lead. And in most cases, I'm like, well, this is over. And I was frustrated being like, we should have won this game. We crushed these guys. And then all of a sudden in the fourth quarter, Caleb Williams came to life. And I was like, this is bull. And then so we had that emotional roller coaster. Of course, there's elation and jubilation, just like Canada has right now because they just scored a goal when we won the game. But I also was just like, oh, thank goodness, because we should have won this game.
Yeah, we got bailed out by Jaden.
Yeah,
and that's one of the reasons I can't Like I'm not gonna, again, spoiler, I'm not gonna put this on favorite moments for him because yes, that was a great moment, but everything had to happen just right for that to happen. There was no, because we have this guy, we have it. As long as you could have thrown it down there and got down the field, whatever was going to happen in that moment. This my final moment though. I think this is the clip. If this is the clip, this will show my final moment. Hold on.
Daniels is going into the Lions den, baby.
Yes. Wait. Did you say Daniel is going into the Lions den? Do you remember the story of when Daniel went into
there's a remix. The Lions go.
Ain't no remix. Because we know that God shut the mouth of the lion. Oh, and now Daniel, he gonna get them.
He already.
Yo, when she said that, before that moment, I had conceded we're not gonna win this game. We're just happy to be in this game. We're playing the number 1 seed. These guys have been dominant all year long. When she said that and reminded me of Daniel and Lions in that story and everything like that, you know how I am spiritually and how I, you know where my faith is. That's at that point, I knew we were going to win the game. It wasn't anything schematically. It wasn't any players. It wasn't anything. It was just that this season has been a movie. This has been kind of scripted. Like, it has been just amazing and immaculate how everything happened. When I heard that, that's when I was like, oh snap, we're about to be in for something great. You know what I mean? And hindsight's 2020. Had we lost, I would have been like, oh well, it was a good story while we, But the fact that she had said it and then we won that game, that was one of those moments for me where it was just like, oh, this is a magical season, and I could not have asked for anything other than this. I mean, it was amazing.
Right. No, well, I haven't admitted this before, but I had been enjoying the game a whole lot that night. So there are some moments of it that are a little fuzzy, but no, that was an extremely fun game, like you said. I mean, and in that, all I was doing was cheering the whole time because we were making incredible plays and everything like that. But no, that too. I mean, that certainly topped things off as being a moment that we didn't see happening, and the season progressing all the way to the championship game, which is awesome.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And look, among all of the moments that we've had throughout the season, there has been one constant: win, lose, or draw. It's been the moment we drafted Jayden Daniels, which has been the moment for the season. And let's go into this. And I'll let you start because you know how long it took for me to get on board. But when was the moment that you knew he was the guy?
It was solidified on Monday Night Football.
Mm-hmm.
I had a real strong inkling at training camp when all the reporters were saying really nice things about him. And they've shared nice things before. They actually shared that Sam Howell looked pretty good at times at training camp. There was never just at times with Jayden. Mm-hmm. It was literally them talking. They're like, this guy can play. This guy's head and shoulders. And they kept saying he's quick to process. That was the part in the training camp report that I kept going back to. And they're like, he gets through his reads quickly and knows where to go with the ball. And so I'm like, we might have ourselves a player here. They really might have been. I felt pretty good just the type of player he was in college, that he was going to be successful as a rookie. Not this successful, but good enough. And then that Monday Night Football game, it was the poise that you saw him with, the fact that we could go punch after punch and then keep going, that the offense looked unstoppable. I think, was that the game that Tressway didn't punt? Or if he did, it wasn't much.
Yeah. I think that might be one of the games he didn't punt. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the fact that he made it throughout the night, he made some incredible throws. He had the deep one to Terry, where he threw it from our 40 and Terry caught it, just like at the 10 or the 5. He had that memorable game sealing touchdown pass where he threw it perfect. And he was willing to be poised and get rocked. There were moments when he would scramble and bail out our offensive line and get a first down. He just played what was almost like a perfect game. And it was just like, this offense and this guy are a perfect mesh for each other. And so it's like, this is it. Like we got ourselves our franchise.
Oh yeah. And honestly, for me, I mean, like I said, it was that same game. But for me, for the longest time, I'd always, when we played one of these type of teams that has one of these top quality quarterbacks, I would always look to the other sideline and be like, damn, I wish I had that guy on my team. Like, can you imagine what we can do with that guy on my team? This was the moment where I detached from that. This was the moment where I was like, I am so glad who we have on our team. And it was just like you said, one after the other. And I think one of the biggest things was nothing phased him. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but nothing phased him, even the positives. Even when you scored a touchdown, he's not going over there, signing autographs a la, the late Dwayne Haskins. He's not going over there, He's sitting down on the sidelines, just what's next? And that constant keeping the head in the game, keeping focus, going, you're only as good as the next thing, always got to improve. We were aggressive, and we were the aggressor in that game. We kept continually coming after them, and they were playing catch up to us. I think the final score was 28 or 38-33 or something like that. Yeah. Won by like 5 points or something. But going into that game, albeit Cincinnati struggles early, albeit Cincinnati, maybe didn't have the defense or maybe didn't have certain pieces. Cincinnati was in the Super Bowl, 3-4 years ago? Yeah. Cincinnati, they have, if Cincinnati is healthy, we've seen they are a team that can make it to the championship and beat the likes of the Kansas City Chiefs. So this was a leveling stick. This was one of those games that said, okay, what do you have? And the lights were on him and everything like that. That to me sat there and even people like me that were ready to look at every single flaw he had, that moment sat me back and said, you better pay attention. You got something good over here, because he was electric.
Yeah. You talked about the stoicism and ability to just stay focused. There were very few times in the year where he would break, I don't want to say break character, but show a whole lot of emotion out there. Like he was kind of just like, business. This is what we do. I know what we can do. I know what I can do. Let's go play. Let's go execute. And that was always fun to see. He became a player that everybody could like. They've always said the most popular and powerful man in Washington is the Redskins quarterback. And that showed up this season when everyone started buying Commanders jerseys, number 5 jerseys, because he's just a player you want to root for. And even as a casual fan or a fan of another team, how many times did we hear from folks that we talked to throughout the season? They're like, well, I mean, you guys got yourself a great quarterback. And this was his first 17 games, and people already are like, yep, he's it.
So believe it or not, people outside of Washington knew before I knew. Okay.
Yes,
they were on board way before I did. But
well, in your defense, you were a Drake maniac, so I'll give you a little bit more time to get on board.
Oh yeah. And Sam, I could have been sandwiched with 2 North Carolina quarterbacks, so I had a little thing. But to be honest, most of the reason for my skepticism was Robert, because of all of the attention that, even though once you see them as quarterbacks, they're kind of different. I think a lot different in certain ways. Yeah, but the hype and how much this city and state area fell in love with him and how they pushed him up, and you could see how different they are even in personality and how they are as a person. But still, I wanted to say, oh, this is the last time we had something like this is what happened. And so it's easy for us to go back to that. But I think one of the differences, we talked about the stoicism and how he reacted, and there was so many times on the sidelines where you just see him hands folded, just like, and your plays that you're getting excited about, whatever, and he just panned to him, and he's to it. And it's funny because a couple years ago we get upset with Ron Rivera because he wouldn't have any emotion and everything. Like, you're right, but we weren't winning. Right. If you're winning, you could act any way you want to act, but it's even better when you're seeing that, because it's kind of like the Jalen Hurts thing, where you're not too high, you're not too low, you stay right here so that you'll be able to handle any of these situations. And I think that leads to my big thing about it is the injury. When one of the things that I was scared most about was the injury, similar to RG3. When RG3 got hurt, he got the concussion first against Atlanta, and then obviously the Ravens game where Haloti Ngata, took out the knee and the whole nine, and that was the beginning of the end. When I saw him get hurt and get that rib shot, or was it Carolina where he got kind of folded up, and then you see him go down and they take him out of that game early. Thankfully, we didn't really need him in that game, but to see how he worked after that. I think we played the Giants and he got hit once and he kind of, took him out of play. And then he said, okay, I got to focus. I got to stay reserved. And we all mentioned there was those games where he got hurt or where he was hurt and he didn't look like himself. He didn't look that he didn't have that same electric ability. But now in hindsight, you see he's working within the system. And he knows this is not just a 1 week league. This is a marathon. This is 17 to 19 games or beyond if you can last that long. And the fact that he was kind of able to protect himself and do what he needed to do. He almost changed some of his game to where now I don't have to be this dynamic runner all the time. I can run what is needed, but I can use my legs to then open up the field a little bit more. And the way that he was able to adjust in his own mind and in his own play, that's when it kind of settled with me that this isn't Robert, who's just going to go out there and just, hey, I'm going to leave it all out there. And I jumped on all our fans about, oh, man, he's tough. I just want to see him be tough. I want to see him for 10 years. You know what I mean? So, I feel like my point is valid, is that I don't want to just throw him to the wolves, but I wasn't giving him the credit that he is smart about this. He sees kind of what it is. He knows what it's taking to be able to stay on the squad and stay healthy. What do I always say? The best ability is availability. So to see how he worked with that injury and see how he kind of still was able to elevate his game to evolve past just, okay, if my legs aren't working, what else can I do? That hooked me, because I was ready for that moment to kind of be like, okay, here's where the other shoe drops. Here up, he's hurt again. Here we go. See, I told you, but I was so wrong, and I'm so glad I did. Shout out to him.
Well, I think it also forced him to develop a little bit more, where he basically said, if I can't run when I want to run, I need to know where I'm going to go with the ball. Yeah. And I'm sure the game plan changed a little bit too. It did. We weren't having as long developing plays, knowing that he couldn't bail us out. And, we saw some, against the Eagles at their place, against the Steelers, our offense struggled to go further downfield. We did a lot of quick game, a lot of short stuff, but like I said, it forced him to learn, like, all right, well, if I don't have my legs, then I better get the ball out, and that probably didn't hurt either.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. And that showed the character, that showed the maturity, that showed, okay, like I said, he's here for the long term, and he's our guy. He's our guy. I'll say it.
Yes.
That's our guy. Let's go. So keeping with that, and obviously to most people, he was not a surprise, although I'll put him as one of my honorary mentions, as that was definitely a surprise, because I've seen Heisman Trophy winners come into the league and be duds. So this I had to see for myself. So that was a surprise to me. But going along with that, I'm gonna go to another one. You know what I always talk about in the offseason? My O-line. My mock drafts have hundreds of O-line. My surprise, especially after last year and that bust that we had in the 4th round, Brandon Coleman. The fact that he's been able to come in here, play the amount of games that he has, and now, even looking towards the future, we've been kind of like, okay, well, if we don't do anything, okay, it's good to have him there, but, if we can get better, let's get better. And maybe, we don't know, but in-house, they might have really been sold on the guy. This guy has proven that he is far better than what I expected from him. And if I'm not saying this is going to be our guy for the next 10 years, but if we can have a guy like this where we grow him up in the system, did we draft Trent Williams?
Yes.
And then we molded him and grew him up in that. Yeah. So like, that's something that I want. Like, instead of trying to, we'll talk about free agency later and go and looking elsewhere and bringing guys in. If we can draft a guy and then develop him into a stud, I'm all for it. So Brandon Coleman for me is by far the biggest surprise this year, and I'm pleasantly surprised about it.
That's a great choice right off the gate, because especially in the off season, we were so frustrated in free agency. We didn't address left tackle. We knew we were going quarterback, and we're like, well, what are we doing? This is the most important spot. And then we didn't address it in the draft in that early Friday night. We didn't do anything. We didn't do anything Thursday night. We didn't trade back in. And fans were freaking out. Like, what are we doing at left tackle? We're going to get this guy killed. He's going to have an injury like Robert. Do we not remember this? And Coleman surely outplayed everyone's expectations.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start with another rookie. Then I wasn't going to, but I'm gonna go on the other side, and that's Mike Sainristil.
Yeah. Yep.
And where he surprised me was when he moved to the outside and he made a really seamless transition. And then when in that game against the Lions that you talked about, I mean, dude balled out. Yeah. Yes, he had one play was a really bad throw by the Lions wide receiver, but the way he baited Jared Goff into that interception at the end of the half, where Goff thought, oh, my guy's open, and Sanderson was like, nope, this is what I was waiting for. Mine. Yep. That was just incredible. And so that really all of a sudden it's like, man, you in the draft, was it Nick Saban said, pound for pound, this is the best player in the draft. And so we were like, oh, okay, maybe we're okay with this undersized DB. Maybe there's something there. And then you heard a lot how smart he was, and he gave some interviews and he showed his maturity and he's wiser than being a rookie and how he talks in his life and all that stuff. And then all of a sudden you see him play out there. In the beginning of the season, he took some learning. It's okay. He's a rookie. But then to the point where it's like, we start sitting there going, maybe he is a starting outside corner.
Yep.
Maybe he is solid. So I was really impressed with Mike Sainristil.
Oh yeah, I remember us talking about him in the draft and coming up, and the person who had told me is Michigan fan, our guy Alex Loosemore, who had talked about how good he was and how well he was able to read the offense, what routes were coming, and what do we always talk about between him and Jordan McGee? Both of those guys were captains. Both of these guys, high character guys, well respected. And like you said, there was a number of times where he's coming up here one-on-one with the wide receiver, making a tackle where it's just him and the guy, and they need a yard to get the first, and he's making an open field tackle and bringing him down. Or when he's rushing to the sidelines and pushing the guy out of bounds last minute, and the whole team's going fighting for him. He's well respected in house, but also that championship mentality. One of the things we talked about last week is how, what do we want to emulate from Philly and what they did? They brought a mentality in there, getting all those Georgia guys who had all been together in multiple national championships, and now they're playing together and they won themselves a Super Bowl. That is kind of what I think he's bringing over, that mentality. This is what it takes to be the best. You got to continually play above your weight. And I love that. I absolutely love that. Ben Cornett's in the comments. What up, Ben? Said JD5 was it when he beat Philly in their second matchup. That was his best game-winning drive of his career so far. Love it.
That was one of our favorite moments of the season as well. That was just a fun game.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And sticking on going back to our player favorite, which player surprised us this year? Sticking on in the secondary, sticking on defense. Noah Igbenogany.
Oh.
I mean, how many times? First and foremost, how long did it take for us to figure out his last name? Noah I. But every single time we watch a game, all of a sudden you just see Noah Igbenogany with the tackle, Noah Igbenogany breaking up the pass, and half the season I'm like, who is this guy? Like, but he continually showed up at the right times. He's what gives me faith in Adam Peters, Dave Quinn, and them guys, because they know what they want and they go out after it. He fit exactly what they were doing, and he shined. He thrived. I honestly, for the amount of time that we talked this season about how we didn't trust our secondary and how we questioned, do we have anybody that's really a decent player in the secondary? Noah Igbinoghene, he showed up most of the year, kind of the way Mikey Sainristil did in the surprise factor, where it's kind of like came out of nowhere, was a solid player. I think earned himself more time in Washington. But that was one of those things where it was kind of like, we know this is a hole, and yet he's still playing big all throughout this season. So the fact that they were able to make that move, get him, and then it worked out for us in our secondary, I think he's one of the most underrated pieces of our secondary that actually thrived at certain times in the season.
Well, and what made him so important is because he could play the slot so well. He allowed Sainristil to slide outside when we needed him, not because we wanted to put Sainristil out there, but because Forbes and St-Juste flopped, and they said, "Get him out of here." And so that was extremely important that Igbinoghene played so well that it allowed the flexibility on defense. Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna stick on defense. The ageless wonder. Bobby Wagner.
Yeah.
I knew we were going to get something good from him. I had slight concerns of like Thomas Davis vibes where he had nothing left in the tank and you're signing with Washington to get one more paycheck. But I thought he would do well in the run game, but then get exposed in the pass game. And that's when it'd be like, all right, well, thank you for coming to play for us. And we'll see, have a great career. That didn't happen. Not that he's great in the pass game, but he was great in the run game. He was a pass rusher, which I hadn't expected out of him. He could blitz. And then the leadership on the field. He not only just on the field with the defense, kind of making sure people knew like where they're supposed to be, which has been a problem in DC for so many. The pointing that always would happen after big plays. He was having none of that because they better know where they're supposed to be before that ball gets snapped. Otherwise, he's going to see you on the sideline and tell you why were you not there. We told you you're supposed to be there. But then you knew he had to respect the locker room, but then you started to see that he started to get in respect for the young quarterback and that relationship, that mentorship, that relationship. It's like that also solidified Jaden's status with the team because when Wagner respects you, everyone else is going to respect you. Yes.
Yep. Oh yeah, you're in. And that, I mean, if we're not just limiting this to a player, but a relationship, that was the biggest surprise for me. The relationship between the ageless wonder, the vet, the Super Bowl champ, and the rook, and how close they became, and also with him, Wagner and Sainristil. A lot of those guys came close, and you see the veteran kind of taking those guys underneath their wing. And Ertz was the same thing. How Ertz took in Jaden. That to me was so surprising because it was kind of like, okay, this isn't just another rookie. This is a guy that is well respected in house. And to your point about, when we knew it was it, part of me raised the eyebrow when Ertz kept talking because everybody in training camp says, yeah, this guy, he's great. He's showing us things. But Ertz doubled down and Ertz kept saying, this guy's going to show y'all. This guy is more locked in. He is more focused. He knows what's going on out here. He is a lot better, and he's going to show y'all. And Ertz was absolutely right about that.
I think there was a report that he told his wife in minicamp, this kid can play. We got ourselves something here, that's kind of fun to hear when players know. Yeah,
I love that. My last one, I'm staying on defense, Dante Fowler Jr.
Oh,
we've done this offseason talk several years, and all the time, every once in a while, you're asking me, well, who do you want to pick up in free agency for cheap? Dante Fowler Jr. Every single time I say Dante Fowler Jr. because I'm expecting us to be able to be in our budget. He can be a fill-in wherever is needed, and, hey, great. He's just another side piece. What he was able to do this year, I didn't see that at all. I saw 3-4 sacks, a lot of tackles, just a great piece, a great cog in the wheel. Like, that's something that's great. I would have been perfectly fine with that. To have the consecutive weeks with sacks, to have the dominant force that he's been able to be. We talk about, Sweat from Philly, and he's not the biggest guy. but he's able to get it done. There was a point when Fowler was one of the premier guys, at least by how he was playing this year throughout the season in the league.
Yes.
You know, part of that is he knows, you know, he has a great relationship with Quinn. He knows that defense, you know, he's played with Quinn over the years and things like that. And it's great when you have that, when you have somebody that, you know, the coach believes in you and, you know, they're going to really put you in a spot to really unlock all of your abilities. But what we were able to see from him and how he was able to just dominate and thrive and really provide a pass rush when what you, me, all of us were saying, do we really have a D line? Like,
right.
Yeah, we got those guys in the middle, but I mean, they've been there. You know what I mean? Cleveland Farrell, is he it? You know, Fowler. We didn't really have somebody that we were like, okay, yo, we got this guy over here, right? But I'll tell you what, the season that we've had with Dante Fowler, I'll take that over any season we had with Chase Young and Montez Sweat. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, Montez gave us some sacks and he gave us some ability, but it was never consistent. It was always 2 sacks here and then no sacks. Oh, he had a big game here and then nothing. You know, he was more consistent after leaving than he was in Washington. Dante Fowler Jr. had like 6 or 7 weeks where it was a sack each game. Like, he was consistently in it. And that to me was far outdid my expectations, because I thought he was just going to be a nice role player. And he played far above his weight for me. And you got my applause, man. That was the biggest surprise for me.
He's a Dan Quinn guy. Of course he did.
Yeah.
He follows Dan everywhere he goes because he knows it's his ticket to success. But I'm with you. I thought 6 to 8 sacks would be something realistic, be able to provide some like that pat, like Brian Orakpo. He can get real close to the quarterback, you know, put the pressure, but they still get the throw off type player. But in his plays, the impact plays were at important parts of the game where we needed something. I think the pick 6 that he had, you know, kind of jump started that game for us. He would have timely sacks, and that so he had a bigger impact beyond just getting in double digits in sacks for us. Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah. So my last one is Austin Eckler. I did not see this coming from him. I really kind of thought that the Chargers got rid of him and they probably know he doesn't have a whole lot left. Yeah, he does. Boy, does he have some quickness.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like we knew, okay, cool. He can be a third down back. He can be that, you know, get the pass or that kind of stuff. But what we saw from him was an ability to run. Was a different style of runner, which we kind of thought we knew we'd have with the speed thing, but his vision, his bursts, his quickness, it became another dynamic that I wasn't expecting us to have out of him. And to balance out what was going on with B-Rob, the good and the bad season of B-Rob, shows just how important he was to this offense. To when he was out for a bunch of time, our run game kind of struggled. Now it still kind of struggled when he came back as well. So there were other issues, but he really was a big component, and also from his pass protection standpoint. All right, USA just tied it up. Nice. But that was big. He had a much larger role this season than I thought.
Mm-hmm. I definitely didn't expect that we'd get still some of his better moments. He was another guy that I never thought in our wildest dreams we would get him, but the fact that we were able to pick him up, I still thought, okay, we're his best. Like you, I thought we're his best years behind him. Did the Chargers get the best version of him, X, Y, and Z? Yeah. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Totally opened up our run game. Totally gave us the Antonio Gibson that we were looking for in the Rivera years. He was that guy that can open up the field. And let's be honest, he got us out of a number of jams with his little short dump passes and short receptions that he was able to then extend for, 10, 15, 20 yards and get the first down. So yeah, he was a huge piece to the puzzle this year. And, being a running back, that just hit. I absolutely love that since my guy, Mr. B-Rob, wants to struggle. Got everybody in house talking about they want him out.
Well, you said it. He was what we thought Antonio Gibson was going to be. That's why I think was just like we knew we could get a player like this. We knew this could be impactful. It finally happened.
Yeah, finally. All right, man. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick breather, and then we're going to come back, and we are going to be grading our draft class and looking towards this off season. But stay tuned for this. This is our guy, Mr. Anton Benson, Awesome Artisans. Check him out. Yeah, buddy, that's my guy, Mr. Anton Benson of Awesome Artisans. You can find him on Instagram, awesome_artisans, and definitely get in touch with him. He might be stuck in a little snow, so he might be down for a little bit of time right now. But when he gets up and mobile, he definitely travels. He does good work, so definitely tune into him. Welcome back to Washington Football Weekly. That's my guy over there, South Carolina's finest. It's your boy, Sean Spencer. We have been talking about Washington, our favorite moments. When did we know JD5 was it? And which players surprised us throughout this season? It was such a great season that we definitely have to recap. And if it was up to us, we would continue to talk about it. But one thing I like about this guy over here is that got to move forward. Always about taking that next step. And what's our favorite time of the year? The off season. But we still got to look back a little bit. We still got to look back because we got our first draft class under the Dan Quinn, Adam Peters sort of regime, and they did well. Yeah. They did well. We might have questioned them in the moment. I will say I questioned them a lot in the moment. Mm-hmm. JD5 over Drake May. I still question that, but it's all good. It's all good. But let's go into it. Do you have an overall grade for the draft?
Oh, I don't.
Yeah, I don't either. So I was just going to let us go through. Yeah. Because obviously you can go first pick and all the rest if you would like to.
That's kind of how I have it. Yeah. Well, I've got based on every pick, like grading the player.
That's what I did. I did. So, yeah, basically with the first pick, we already know what it is. Jayden Daniels, number 2 pick overall. We get him out of LSU, former Heisman Trophy winner, 100% A+, extra credit, whatever it is you want to say, Will.
A+. I mean, I debated A or A+, but he had a beyond expectations of the rookie. I picked him to win the Rookie of the Year in August. Got some money off that here in February, which was kind of nice. But I didn't expect him to be like this, So he was incredible. Easily A+.
Oh yeah, so worth it. You had to cross state lines for it.
Right? I did. It's got me thinking, what else do I need to go up to the state of North Carolina to make some wagers?
Right. Yeah, no, I'm right there with you, 100%. Very easy. Didn't even need to think about it. Now let's move into the bulk of it. The number 2 pick, Jer'Zhan Newton out of Illinois. I'll go first. Yes, when we first heard this, we were kind of sitting here like Daron Payne, Jonathan Allen. I think we had Ridgeway at the time. Big Phil, Darius Mathis. We didn't need this position. There was a lot of other positions that we thought were a lot better, but this was the best player at the time in our eyes, and they knew what they were doing. I gave this a B. I thought with the injuries, he was able to come in and play. He played his role, but there was a lot of time, especially towards the end of the year, where he really started to separate himself to where it's like, okay, Newton's in the game. Oh, snap. Oh, he's making some big plays. I think it was a play against maybe Philly in the last game. I think it was right around the goal line where it was a second down and Saquon, and they handed it to Saquon. And he just shot through there and made like a shoestring tackle. And that would have been an easy touchdown for them. Newton, I had watched him at Illinois, so I knew he could be a game breaker, but along with the fact that I didn't think we needed that position and the fact that I was like, there's a couple other guys that I was looking at personally, I thought it was too early, but I thought he definitely did what I thought he can do with the role that he was given. I got to give him a B for that.
I gave him a B as well. He was a surprise of a pick, and then we also started going, okay, well, they're drafting for the future. We kind of understand that. He started off the season slow with the injuries, like you mentioned, but then he started to come on, and especially when Allen went out and we needed him to play, he came on. And I heard something today that he may have had more tackles than both Allen and Payne, and he played less snaps in them. So essentially, he was making more of an impact while out there. And the other part about it is he is a different type of defensive tackle. He's quicker off the ball, off the snap. And so he's able to get into the backfield a little bit faster than who Allen and Payne are. So he brought another element to it. So I certainly think it not only is building for the future, we'll see what happens this offseason if you know, with Jonathan Allen, but it was a surprise pick, but it was a good choice.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Moving on to the next one, I'll let you go first. Mikey Samerstill from Michigan.
Mm-hmm. I give him an A. Okay. I debated between A or A plus, and I don't have any minuses, by the way. So I'm just you either that the letter or a plus to it.
I like your grading scale.
Yeah. It reminds me of Herndon High School here.
Right.
Yeah. 90 to 93 is an A. 94 and above is the A plus maybe.
A plus.
Or is that a B plus? Was a B plus a 90 to 93? I think it was.
Yeah, I think it was B. Yeah. And then because 94, 96 or 94, 96 or 97 was an A.
Yeah. That's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get a 92 and you're only getting a B plus. But Samerstill came on throughout the season the way a rookie should, but it was the ability to go play outside. He was drafted to be that Cooper DeJean type role, and he had a chance to do it in the beginning of the season. And then when forced out of necessity to take on a different role, he did it with no fanfare. He just did his job. He ended up playing really well, and he became, now he is a cornerstone part of our defense in some capacity. And he's going to be a leader in the locker room in year 2 as well. So he was a great selection by them.
Oh, absolutely. So I went B, and the only reason is because I want room for improvement. I also think he far exceeded my expectations. There were some moments where I thought his size, which he can't do anything about, kind of, prohibited him from maybe not making the play, but being as dominant as I would have liked. That Lions game, yes, that was absolutely great. And I don't care that Jameson threw the terrible pass. It was 2 interceptions. All right. He was there. He made the play, and I'm with it. Samerstill's a dude. I think he played great, but there's still enough that he can still learn. There's still room where he can grow and improve. He's one of the guys that just makes me so excited for this upcoming year. Having a year under his belt, that experience does more than any video, any film, any of that can teach you. So the fact that he was on there, solidified himself as a key piece, now going into the future, he can only get better. So I'm far believing that he'll exceed my expectations going into next year, barring any injury, anything like that. But I got a B plus right now, but that's just because I don't want to get too amped up on. I want to, he still has stuff that he needs to work on, but I have no issues. I definitely like the A grade as well. But you know how I do. I definitely grade on a curve, a hard curve.
Yes, you do.
Jaden came this close to getting a C from me. All right, this close. All right, and look, I'm going on to the next one. This is the first one where I get my famous grading scale comes in. Ben Sinnott from out of Kansas State, incomplete. I just don't have much. I think he had a couple catches. Obviously, we know about the fake punt in the championship game where he was able to catch that one. But other than that, he was behind Ertz. He was behind John Bates. He really just did not get any kind of real attention. I don't know if they just put him in as a blocking tight end, or maybe he was not getting the offense right away, or maybe he was just buried on the depth chart. Bates was a good blocker, and in that scheme, he definitely worked. And Ertz played amazing for us this year, being our second leading receiver overall. So, you're not going to get that many opportunities if the two guys ahead of you are playing and doing their role. So I can't really judge Ben Sinnen on much. So I gave him incomplete. I still want to hold out that he can be a key piece. Ertz can't play forever. And we'll talk about kind of if we want to leave this position alone in the draft or in free agency and where we're going with that. But thinking that we might stay with these guys, I want to give him another year to see if he actually gets more involved in the offense. What do you think?
Yeah. So I'm going to be a little harsh with my grading, but I want you to know, Ben, if you're out there watching us, I have a lot of hope for your future. I have a lot of belief that you're going to play a much larger role. I'm grading this based on the fact that you were a second-round pick, and what was your contribution in year one as a second-round pick. And so for that, I gave you a D+. Because of the fact that there were no impactful plays out there.
Right.
And like to your point, I think Zach Ertz probably surprised him a little bit more how much he had left in the tank. I think I don't think the coaches knew what they had in John Bates' blocking ability, and they really liked him from what we've heard. And so it's not his fault that he got buried behind two guys on the depth chart. But if you're going to be picked in the top 50 slots or 55 slots, and you're a team that won 4 games, they need production out of you. They're expecting production. And it didn't happen. So I still I'm very intrigued to see what happens in year 2. And I'm very intrigued to see what they saw in practice translate to the offseason moves, because I still have a lot of hope for him. I still think he's going to be the Swiss Army knife type player. I don't think he's a Zach Ertz replacement. I don't think he's a John Bates necessarily replacement. I think he might be a combo. But for the production, it was a D+.
Oh yeah, and I guess that's a little bit more harsh. I had to give him incomplete because I didn't want to hurt the man's feelings. I didn't want to hurt his feelings because there's a part of me, and I mentioned this to you and Ab, that he kind of gives me that Sammis Reyes vibe, or somewhere in between Sammis Reyes, which is a project, and Cole Turner, which we had high expectations for, and that never panned out. So I kind of, and again, who knows what he really is, because we really have not gotten to see him outside of special teams or outside of a blocking role. So it really doesn't give us much to go on. But for where he got picked, I totally understand what you're talking about. And moving on to the next pick, the one that I like, I really am happy for, my most surprised player, Brandon Coleman. Will, what you think about him, man, and getting him and having him as a starter this year?
I gave him a B+. I was going to go A. I just dropped it down just to be slightly, a little more critical, because of the fact that there were moments where he got beat. He might have hit a rookie wall for all we know. Against the Eagles, he had some pretty bad moments out there.
Mm-hmm.
But he was a 3rd-round pick. People said they kind of knew some potential. Some of the draft scouts were saying he should be a guard. Well, we put him on the outside and said, nope, we're fine with it. I like the way they used him, where they were rotating him with Cornelius Lucas in the beginnings for him to kind of learn the process and get an opportunity to play a little bit, see something, play a little bit, see something, get some tutelage out there. So he far surpassed our expectations, being able to man, once he got healthy, man the left tackle spot all season, and he did a pretty darn good job.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And for me, before the season, I like to think of myself as somebody that knows college ball. I was coming in looking like, who is this guy again? Like who are we getting? And the fact that you and I had been saying all first round, second round, hey, give us a lineman, give us a tackle, give us somebody. because we need to protect the investment. And when they got this guy, it was kind of like, here we go. Then I got shades of what's his name? Who do we have last year? Daniels. Rated Daniel. Yes. Yeah. Who was absolute bust. And we got him right around, I think that was the 4th round where we got him. That just did not pan out at all. So obviously hindsight, I'm looking back at that and like, okay, what can you do? But to your point, they threw him in there, and it was one of those, they threw him in the deep end and he learned how to swim. And yes, he's had moments that didn't look great. Sweat and the boys at Philly, had him on the spin cycle because they were getting all around him. But I went the same thing. I went with the B+ too, because I didn't have any expectations of him. So he definitely far exceeded that. But he held his own. He was able to stay on the field for the majority of the season. Like the fact that you come into a season not knowing who this guy is, and then he's not only able to play, but play well and solidify that side of the line, that's huge. That's huge, man. So we definitely got more than what we bargained for. And I'm super excited that we were able to get that. And especially to my point earlier, if we're able to keep him and develop him and then have this guy, we talk about Jaden, having him on that rookie contract. You have a guy like this on a rookie contract, and then you play him 4 or 5 years, and then he'll eventually get paid, and we can get those years out of him. I love that. That. So B+ for me. Moving on to the next one, the brother of what old once MVP of the league, Mr. Christian McCaffrey, Luke McCaffrey. Oh, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to take a page at Will's book and just be harsh. I couldn't even give this guy an incomplete to spare him. I gave him a D+. And the plus is because he has a McCaffrey name, and I'm hoping he shows up later because he was on the field this year. Now, mind you, all year we were like, okay, who's the second, who's the number 2 receiver? So there was 3 or 4 guys that were vying for that number 2 shot. He might not have got all the attention that he needed, but he also didn't separate himself. He didn't go out there and make himself, make me get the ball, throw me the ball, make them notice me and everything like that. And yes, maybe we got a little big-eyed because we saw the name and we're like, oh, could he be even half as good as his brother? Well, we didn't see that this year. Who knows? Hopefully they keep him in rotation. We know this guy is very versatile, as being that he played a little quarterback in college. But from what we saw and where he was drafted, I expected a lot more. I expected a little bit more, and we didn't get anything. So that I was very disappointed at that. I still hold out hope. A, yes, partially because of the last name, but 2, because I know if the coaching staff and the front office saw something in him, then it might not be just a 1-year deal. It might be something where they're seeing something that can really grow. You give him 1 year to learn the offense, and then year 2, he really explodes on the offense. So I'm hoping that he will, not that he's listening, but take this and be challenged by it and get better. But from what I saw, I was definitely disappointed, man. I was definitely disappointed. What you think? I
was not as harsh as you, so I gave him a C. But I echo a lot of what you said. And what was interesting was I felt there were opportunities out there that I thought he may step up, and it just didn't happen. I felt as a wide receiver, he showed more in the beginning of the season, the first 8 games, and then he kind of trailed off. That there were moments when he would make 1 or 2 catches, for us in the game that would be a first down, and so they were impactful. I wasn't going to give him a D only because he then switched to be a kick returner, and so he was involved. He was on the field, and so because of that, he wasn't very impactful, but he also wasn't really making mistakes. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to give you a C because he too is a developmental player. And they did say when he was drafted, he probably wasn't necessarily meant to be a first-year contributor, but let's watch what kind of jumps he has. So I'm not giving up on him at all, and I'm curious to see how he fits into their wide receiver room moving forward. So I'm really excited to see him in year 2. But, I was hoping we get a little bit more out of him than we did.
Yeah, definitely. And, I mean, look, we obviously, we saw the name, so there was part of that was kind of like, it's in the blood. You know about his dad, you know about his siblings, everything like that. But again, you got to learn the offense. It has to be the right fit. So we'll see, and I'm excited to see going forward. Another player I'm excited to see going forward, Jordan McGee out of Temple. Didn't get that much on the field. I gave him a C. And that's more on potential, more on the fact that I know it could have been incomplete. I know, but it's more on the potential of what could have been. Look, the reason why I say that is because not to be a spoiler, but the last two got incompletes for me. So I didn't want to have 4 incompletes. And Dominique Hampton and Javonte Jean-Baptiste.
Baptiste was part of the rotation.
Okay, he didn't jump off to me as much. All right, I'm gonna be honest with you on that. And I'm gonna be honest with you on Jordan McGee. No, he was not in there, but I did not expect him to do anything. I was more excited about him coming in, being kind of like Mikey Samerstill, where he had a great presence about him. He was a captain, he was one of those guys that was a star in college when he gets in. But I knew the fact that he had Luvu and Wagner and those guys ahead of him, he wasn't going to get in if he was healthy enough to even play. So to hear that he was able to kind of get in there later on in the year, it gave me hope that he could be. But again, this is a lot of this for me is expectations. Like where Luke, yes. I thought Luke did seaworthy work, but I also expected Luke to be a lot higher for me. And that's just biased because of the name. Mm-hmm. McGee coming out of Temple. What's the last dominant player that you've heard come out of Temple? When's the last player you've heard that come out of Temple that's done anything in the league? I mean, I'd have to really think about that. Todd Bowles, I could say that's in the 80s, but there's been players since then. But I was not expecting much of anything outside of the character and culture issues. And yeah, he didn't get much in. And I'm pulling it out of the air because I know this could have very well been incomplete, but I am hoping for him to be up. Did you give him incomplete?
I did. Yeah, because he got hurt at the beginning of the season and was out like 14 out of 17 games. Right. So it wasn't his it's not a knock on him, and they were really impressed with him at training camp. So that injury was a big disappointment because he was flashing at training camp, playing linebacker. I don't remember if he was the middle linebacker or if he was playing off ball, but he was showing a lot of speed and athleticism, and there was a lot of excitement of him. And then he got his knee injury, and I'm glad he came back and played special teams, but the season was an incomplete for him, of which was meant to be a development season mostly anyway. So that's why I'm like, how are you giving him a C when he didn't play, but you're ripping McCaffrey who actually played?
Potential.
Oh my God.
And where I view it. Yeah, no. And at the very end, it could be that. And if I was to give, I could, for me, it's what the potential was. I didn't have him get on the field at all. So the fact that he was able to, even with special teams, I'm not going to justify this.
Should have given him an A. He got on the field. Yeah. He didn't think he would.
A+.
Yeah.
And Jaden, I'm going to regrade Jaden down to a D. All right. All right. Dominique Hampton, next pick. What is your thoughts on him?
Yeah, he has to be an incomplete. The dude didn't. Yep. I don't know if he dressed any of the games. I feel like he was inactive every game. He was picked to develop, and we'll see whether he's a safety, linebacker, see how they use him this upcoming year. But I mean, this was a redshirt season for him, so incomplete.
Love it. And since we know that you didn't go the same way, what's Javonte Jean-Baptiste? What did you give him?
So for being a 7th round pick and being part of our defensive line rotation, I gave him a B+ because that's a huge value. Now, I don't view him any more than I viewed James Smith-Williams and Casey Toohill to say, It's fine while you're here, but in 2 years, I don't want you on this roster. I want us to have upgraded from it. But to be a 7th round pick and to be some in the mix during games, I think shows an extreme value pick there.
Yeah. And I'll default to you on that one.
Incomplete.
Yeah, I wasn't. Look, I saw him in rotation, And I guess that it based on my gradings from guys before, then yes, he should be graded.
You and
I'll
these
reevaluate
incompletes.
him.
What
I
kind
will
of
hit you with
teacher would you
incomplete
be
of
if
him.
you had to do this? Kids wouldn't even they'd just be
Listen.
stalling when they got
Right.
to Mr. Spencer.
I'd have tenured kids that have been in my class for 3 or 4 years, all right, because they do not get tests. But yeah, the fact that he got in, the fact that he was a seventh rounder, the fact that he's all that stuff. I mean, that look, more power to him to all that he was able to do. And yeah, maybe I'll default to a C for that fact. But at the same time, I also kind of look at everything underneath Jordan McGee as you're lucky to have a contract. You're lucky to be here. So, you know, by default, I would incomplete them. But yeah, I'll give it the fact that he was on the field. I'll give him some shout out, some love for that.
Good.
Those are the grades for the draft. And if you might disagree with me, but it's all good. Definitely let us know what your grades are for this last year's draft class. Before we get out of here, we did want to talk about the free agencies coming up. The NFL draft is coming up. We have a lot of holes, a lot of places that we're kind of looking at that we need to fill. And we're trying to ask, where should we fill them? Should we fill them in free agency? Should we fill them in the draft? Do certain places need to be filled? And what does the front office think compared to what we think? So, Will, I'm going to start with you. Free agencies first, then the draft. What do we need to what do you think we need to focus on in free agency versus the draft? And, you know, where do we go from here?
Yeah, so let's start on offense. So I'm going to steal this from you. I'm sorry, but I'm going to. Offensive line.
Yeah.
I think we need an upgrade here, which may not be what the front office feels like, but I would have to say I don't agree with them. What I don't know is what happened towards the end of the season when the run game stalled. Was it the running backs, which we saw some of that? You know, there's a few times B-Rob like slammed into defenders or slammed into our offensive line instead of running around people. So there was a little bit of that. But even Eckler struggled, you know, against the Lions, you know, and stuff. So our running game did struggle. And I don't know, did the offensive line get tired by the end of the season? Were they hurt? So I feel there needs to be some personnel changes in there. I'm not sure what. I think first and foremost, we need to find out, what do they think about Brandon Coleman? Do they feel like he can make an improvement from year 1 to year 2? So this is our left tackle. Or do they feel he's versatile enough where if we can get something better at left tackle, we can slide him over? I feel like we need something. Nick Allegretti, I think, became a pleasant surprise as a signing.
Yes.
Do I want him starting at left guard next year? I'm not so sure. Could he be, you know, the other thing about it is Sam Cosmi got hurt in the Lions game and he tore his ACL. So he's not going to be available week 1. So could Allegretti be that spot starter for almost half a season until Cosmi is ready and we sign a better left guard? I'm not exactly sure. I know we need to get a better backup center. The offensive line fell apart when Biotish went out. So when looking at some players from the tackle perspective, if I were to make a big signing, if this guy were to become available, I would put money towards Ronnie Stanley. He's about 30 years old. I think I'd give him a 3 or 4 year deal. And I feel like you'd be solidifying that blind spot for Jaden Daniels. I don't think that Baltimore is going to let him go. And I'm not sure they want to upgrade at left tackle. I'm not sure they see him as the upgrade at left tackle. I would have some interest in bringing in DJ Humphries as potentially taking over that Cornelius Lucas role. We really don't know what he did in Kansas City this year. He didn't get a whole lot of playing time, you know, coming off his injury. If I were to look in interior, I have an interest in Kansas City guard Trey Smith. He's only 26 years old, so I would give him some money. He's a bigger body out there, and so I think that could help when going up against the guys like Jalen Carter and some of the other big guys that are in our division inside. And then that would allow for you to have, you know, Coleman outside, Smith, Allegretti can take over at right guard until Cosmi's ready, and I think you may have a better lineup there. But there are a couple veterans that I would also consider if they wanted to bring in the mix. One of them would be reuniting. So Kevin Zeitler of Detroit, formerly of the Ravens, you know, so this would be he's a 1-year player for us in that he's going to compete, or maybe start, but it's just kind of like a 1-year stopgap. I'd be interested in bringing back Brandon Sheriff. I wonder if he would come back with our new regime and stuff. He was healthy in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
He didn't miss games like he did in DC. And if you're looking at this is a guy to come in and play until Cosme's ready, Sheriff, go right back into your spot at right guard. We knew you were successful with us. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The other guy I've liked for a while, his name is Mark Glowinski. When he was a free agent 2 years ago, I really had a lot of interest in one of your podcast buddies, the twins or the brothers, that one's a Steelers fan, one's a Packers fan. This was the name that he had said coming out. He's like, you need offensive linemen. This could be – it might have been when Sheriff was moving on, so maybe it was longer than that. But so I wouldn't be opposed to getting someone older with the idea that they'd be part of the rotation mix. Maybe they can battle Alec Grady, but I do think we need to make some plays in offensive line, as well as later in the draft. I'd like for us to draft somebody that we can develop.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's so to piggyback on that, that's the draft. I do want us to look into the draft, especially with our fortune of us getting Brandon Coleman. I really love that move. But I like some of those picks. I don't know how I feel about the Brandon Sheriff thing, just because what is it going to cost to get him? But at the same time, it would be good having that guy that we know can be a Pro Bowler, especially we don't know how long Cosme's going to be out. And when he comes back, will he need a little bit of an adjustment period? So yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I too think we need to look at center as well. I've looked maybe at Ryan Kelly from the Colts. He's just
as
over
a starter.
30.
What do you mean?
No, as a backup. No, as a backup. No, as somebody to come in, because Dieter is not it as a backup.
No, he's not.
Yeah, so just somebody that's going to come in and it's where it's not going to, the play will not diminish just because that guy came in. Just to get other people on. I think that is what our biggest need is, as far as when we're looking at our O-line, is depth. And you already know I always joke about having 10, 11, 12 linemen, but depth is huge, because not just depth, but having good depth, having guys on that second team that are just as good as your starters up there, or not just as good, but the fall off isn't that great. Another place that I think we need to look at, and you and I have talked about, is secondary. There's a couple names you and I have talked about. Do we look at Kendall Fuller? Because he, we want to potentially bring him back in-house. And maybe if we're going to go super old, but just kind of have an old presence of Stephon Gilmore. You know what I mean? Just somebody he's older, but he's been around the league. Somebody that you and I have talked about for a while, and came into the league out of Ohio State, Jeff Okudah. Got hurt immediately and has been kind of bouncing around the league right now. I mean, if we can get him back to that level, he's a solid corner. I mean, that'd be great at that spot. So this at secondary is somewhere where I think I'd be more focused on potentially. Let's see what kind of veterans are out there. Let's see what kind of, because we're not going to get Johnson from Michigan. I can't pair my Michigan guys together.
Will Johnson,
yeah, because we're not going to move. I'm thinking politics. Yes. We're not going to move up to get him, and I don't think he's going to fall down to wherever we're going to be. So I would look into free agency at this spot. I think getting the secondary and getting somebody.
Are you just talking corner, or are you talking safeties as well?
Mainly focused on corner. I like where we are in safety, but again, depth wouldn't hurt. But these main guys that we're just talking about are corners.
Okay.
Definitely want to just get something where we have more veteran, more experienced play out there. We've been young for a long time, and as we've seen them getting Lattimore, Nagahi and some of these other guys that are a little older, let's go ahead and get that and see if we can get guys that have worked together. What other place are you looking at in free agency?
Well, with corner, what I think we need to use free agency to bring in some guys. I think what is most important is we got to find out what is their strategy and role for Mike Sainristil.
Yes.
Because if you've got Sainristil that you're going to plug as your outside corner, then that changes everything that you're looking for in the draft and free agency and who you're looking at.
Right.
But if you were to say, we drafted him to play that Cooper DeJean slot role, we want him to go do that, I would like us to re-sign Noah I regardless, whether he's going to be going as a starting slot or he's the backup. That flex ability, I think, is really important. I do not want us to make the same mistake we've made before along the defensive line, where we are paying two starters big money. So here at corner, I would not be targeting anybody that's going to get a big free agent deal, like a Byron Murphy of Minnesota, like a DJ Reed of the Jets, like a Carlton Davis of Detroit, or Charvarius Ward of San Francisco. I wouldn't go after any of these guys that we have to pay that unless you're cutting Lattimore. I'm not paying two corners big money deals. Right. But what I would do is I would bring in a couple veterans that are going to play, or we're going to offer the opportunity like they did with Mike Davis this past year to say, you come in, you have the ability to win the starting job out there. Now, he sucked and he didn't, but the mentality I liked a lot. And so there's a couple guys that I'm going to mention. Kendall Fuller, I'm all about reuniting it. And I would give him a little bit more money too if it's Kendall Fuller. I'm talking like $6 to $8 million. I don't think is a big deal. I'm not giving someone double-digit money there. But if Kendall Fuller is willing to come back here for $6 or $8 million for the year, yes, sign me up. Put him on the outside if he fits the scheme that they want. I'm intrigued by a guy that came out of Virginia Tech. He was a first-round pick of the Titans. He blew out his knee. He's been rehabbing in his home in Hickory, North Carolina, playing for the Charlotte Panthers. He says he's healthy now, fully healthy. I'd be curious to bring in a Caleb Farley, who, as you know me, he's a bigger guy. He's got size. Yeah. If he's got his legs back underneath him, as an idea like this, we're talking cornerback 3, 4, 5. He's 4 or 5 in the depth chart. With the if you have the ability to earn more playing time if you play here. I've always liked the corner Rock Ya-Sin. He was drafted by the Colts. Again, I'm talking corner 4. I'm not talking starter right here, but because I think we need to get a starter in the draft, but it would be someone can they come in here and play while that starter is getting a chance to learn a little bit, kind of like what we did with the Brandon Coleman, Cornelius Lucas. The other one is, and he may cost a little bit more, is Eric Stokes coming from the Green Bay Packers. And I'm out on Jair Alexander, talks of trades and that type of stuff. It's, again, I don't want to spend a lot of money on this if we're already putting money into Lattimore, but definitely corner needs some help. They need some better depth there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then keeping in that level of the Kendall Fullers, the Akudas, like some of those guys, Russell Douglas. He's got a couple years on him, and he's just over 30, and he would, he'd be something within that $6 to $8 million range if we wanted to do that, depending on what he's looking for to move. But I definitely agree with you. What other positions would you think you prioritize in free agency?
Okay, I'm going to go to the other side of the ball. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go to a position that every fan wants to see improved, and I'm going to go to our next playmaker at wide receiver. All right. So here's the deal. I'm going to take the same philosophy with corners to wide receiver. I'm not paying someone top money if we're already paying Terry. And I do think I want to have some flexibility if we want to extend Terry as well. So I'm not interested in T. Higgins. Okay. I have no interest in Chris Godwin. I have no interest in some of the other guys. But what I'm curious is, would the ability to play with the Jaden Daniels provide an opportunity for a veteran to say, I'll take less money for a chance to win and play with that guy than it ever has in the history for Washington? Mm-hmm. So, I gave a couple names out in our chat a couple weeks ago that probably are going to price themselves out. I've thought about, well, what's the rehab for Stephon Diggs, and is he really going to be wanted? More I'm hearing is people may be willing to put some money into him, or maybe he goes back to Houston because they've had some injuries too. But that's kind of what I'm thinking with the Stephon Diggs out there. Like, hey, we'll let you come play. You can take your time, but you'll be with the better receiver. This is a name where this would be a wide receiver. And again, I'm willing to give him $8 or $10 million at the most. I'm not trying to only give it $2 million. This is a guy who's getting towards the tail end of his career. He had a really good start to his career, a really good start. He unfortunately has been banished to Cleveland for the past couple of years. So getting back with another good quarterback, maybe something he'd be interested in. I would love to get Amari Cooper.
Ooh,
I loved him a couple years ago, and we almost signed him away from Dallas back under Jay Gruden's time, and Dallas was able to give him. He went back to Dallas because they had a better quarterback, and he chose Dallas instead. The other guy, and this is more of they can play. They've got a little bit of size, a little bit of speed. Would be Darius Slayton of the Giants.
Really?
So he always makes plays against us.
Against us, yes.
He does. And he's shown some abilities. Also in the last 2 years, he seems to be forgotten there. But he's got some size. He's got some speed. I think he could be a kind of under-the-radar pickup that, as a wide receiver 3 for us, maybe a wide receiver 2 if we need him, along with somebody in the draft. I'll get to that in a sec. I think he could be a contributor in the same capacity that Noah Brown was a contributor, that Jamison Crowder was, that type of stuff. If we're looking for some speed, and I think we do, there's a couple names out there that I think would be interested. Tutu Atwell of the Rams, slot guy, really fast. He's not going to get you any possessions, but he's going to be really, really fast. Rondale Moore is someone I've always liked as a slot guy as well. He's Purdue, super productive. I can't believe it hasn't translated into the draft. I also
he played for Cliff in Arizona.
He did. He would know that offense a little bit. I'm a little bit surprised that Elijah Moore hasn't done more with Cleveland, but I kind of feel like he would want. I think he may want more money than what we would be able to give him, or more of an opportunity. But he's intriguing. I do have a couple size guys I want to share with you. And again, this is older in their careers, saying, "All right, well, let me go play with somebody." A Tyler Boyd from Tennessee, he fell off when he left Cincinnati.
He did.
A Mike Williams from Pittsburgh. He caught that one. I think the one pass he caught all season was against us for a touchdown. And then I am interested in Christian Kirk of the Jaguars if he gets released. I would totally be interested in that, as well as I would re-sign Olamide Zaccheaus. I would sign Crowder. I would sign Noah Brown. I think Diami's going to get more money elsewhere. Someone's going to give him. They saw the potential. They're going to give him some money. But I would sign these guys to say, you can compete. Crowder spent time, injured throughout the season. So I don't think that's a problem. But along with, I would like to see. I think the draft is a possibility in the first round. I think the draft is a possibility in the 5th round. Or the 3rd round. I think we can go multiple directions how things end in the draft, but I want us to add some components in free agency, but I don't want to spend a lot of money because once again, if you're putting the money towards Terry, I don't think you put that much money into one position slot. You can chime away on what you think about all that. I spoke for a while.
Oh no, I'm good. I honestly love that Rondale Moore pick. That to me, I've been talking about him since since he was back in college and he went to Arizona. I actually love that one. Another guy that you and I have been talking about that's just over 30, but if we play him in a role as a role receiver, just a slot or 3rd or 4th guy, he'll be great. A Tim Patrick. We've seen him thrive year after year in different offenses. He's not going to be the number 1, but he's going to be somebody that constantly contributes to your team. So yeah, I'm right there with you. I totally agree on Olamide Zaccheaus. Let's bring him back. He can do it. I love that Van Jefferson pick, James Crowder. I'm with. Who else was I looking at before? I know you're not going to like this pick. But I need my small little white boys at wide receiver. And since Luke didn't do it, Mr. Braxton Berrios. I've been watching him with New York. I've been watching him. I'm telling you, it's my guy, man. I'm telling you.
Doesn't he have a hot wife?
Yes. But because he could play wide receiver, but also he has that special teams element to him. So depending on what happens with Jamison Crowder, he can definitely be good. I've always liked Elijah Moore. Did he he was at Ole Miss, right?
He was, yes.
And I remember him being legit in college, but then obviously going to the Jets, right?
Jets. He flashed there. I don't know what happened.
And I don't know. It just never panned out. And obviously Cleveland, where careers go to die. I mean, that we've seen what happens there. So I would love to get him. And shoot, if we can keep it at where he's at right now, I mean, maybe just pay him a little bit more than that. I mean, I think a lot of people are willing to prove themselves, especially out of there. I love your pick of Amari Cooper. I've never thought to bring him in there because I never thought we'd be a destination he'd want to go. But now I have to get that out of my mind that, you know, everybody wants to come here. Frankie Luvu was talking about, you know, all his friends are talking about, yo, what's going to take for us to get to Washington? You know what I mean? So now that we're a destination, you start looking at some of these other guys, and TJ Chark. I don't, Darius Slayton. Yeah, he's always beat us, but I just don't know. I've never really.
You don't have to agree with all mine. That's okay.
What were your thoughts about Robert Woods? I mean,
I actually had him on my list too. I just felt I was saying too many names. Yeah.
Robert Woods is somebody that I've always liked. He's somebody has been around the league. He's always been a threat where as long as he can stay healthy. That would be somebody that would come in as perfect for me as a number 2 or as a number 3, number 4. Somebody that would be able to take some of the pressure off of, you know, the number 1, the Terry, you know, take pressure off of those guys and you know, open up the defense a little bit. So that's where I would go. Obviously, I sent you guys that post about, I can't remember who was looking it up, but somebody like they were doing little mock things and they were saying, you know, if DeAndre Hopkins was willing to take a pay cut and, you know, only get like $8 million or something like that, you know, he would play in Washington. If he was to go under $10 million and sign a 1-year flyer with us, I'd absolutely take that. I think he still has a couple good years. I don't know if he's going to be what he was, but I definitely think he has something good. So I would definitely love that. But that's free agency. The draft is definitely where I think there's a bunch of guys in the draft that we can actually realistically look at within the first, second, third rounds. But if we can get a number 2 potentially, or not even a number 2, maybe a number 3, maybe just some guys that can contribute, like the Patricks, like the Rondale Moores, that I think is absolutely a necessity. I think it's imperative that we go pick up a guy like this and for the right price. And I'm very eager to see what they do at this spot because wide receiver is something we've all said we needed coming out of training camp. And now with all the success we had this year without really having a true number 2 or even really, I mean, we got the best out of Olimar Zaccheaus. We got the best out of Noah Brown when he was on the field. Diami showed up in the playoffs, but nobody else was consistent outside of McLaren. So if we can get somebody that can just give us some consistency at wide receiver, I mean, that the pressure that I will take off of Jaden, I think it would be appreciated from him for sure. But also, I think that opens up the run game. I think that will open up Terry to be more effective. And just imagine if he had teams come in where they're not focused all their attention on him, where they have to focus on him and the other guy. So that's some of the some of the places I'm looking. But this, I want us looking in the draft and free agency. You know, let's look at both areas so we can really hit this position.
I'm definitely with you on that. I mean, I think I can go with a wide receiver with pick number 29 if someone's there. You know, Emeka Ibuka, if Luther Burden, if Matthew Golden's there. You know, those are going to be weapons. I can go with that. I can wait to the second round. I can wait to the third round. I could wait to the fifth round. You get someone if he falls that far, like a Kyle Williams, who's a slot guy, speed guy. Like I'm okay with adding a lot of pieces to this. You know, what we saw our wide receiver room, we had like 7 guys who could catch the ball. That, like you said, there just wasn't consistency. But if there's one thing I think we were missing the most, though, was speed. And we've got a quarterback who can throw it. And so I do think if there was one aspect we needed to get, if it wasn't just quickness, it was going to be someone else out there that can get over the top. And put some because that's only going to stretch the field to open up Zach Ertz, to open up some of your other guys, and Jaden can hit it. Or if it stretches the field so it's open for Jaden to run the ball, you know, if you really need to, you know. And so I do think we're going to see us upgrade another offensive position, meaning the running back. And so getting someone who is able to stretch the field, I think, would be helpful for that position, just like you said.
Oh yeah, absolutely. What is there any other free positions in free agency that you were looking at, or were you looking more towards the draft for the rest of the stuff, or what else?
I mean, I think we need to be upgrading along the defensive line. I think we need some serious upgrades there. I personally want a bigger body. When we're looking at some of the free agents that are edge rushers, like a Khalil Mack, like a Josh Sweat, like some of those guys, like a Dante Fowler. I don't know if I want to pay big money for that. I think we've got a problem setting the edge with our run defense, and I want someone who can do that as well as rush the passer. And I think having someone who's simply a pass rush specialist, it's not going to hurt us, but it's not going to fix the problem that we have in our run game. And so that right there, I think, is a little bit of a concern for me. Yes, okay, the guy is supposed to be getting cut. Nick Bosa, absolutely. I'm looking at that. I'm looking at big money for Nick Bosa. I'm willing to trade my first-round pick and next year's first round and see what else Cleveland may want for Myles Garrett. I'm willing to put in that as an impact player, absolutely. I also wouldn't mind going cheap and bringing back Preston Smith as someone who can do a little bit of both. I don't know what happened to him in Pittsburgh this year when he got traded. He really just didn't do much with them, and I would be open for a reunion with him. I also would be curious. It'd be another Dallas guy, but is someone like DeMarcus Lawrence worth looking into? He's had success in this defense. Does he bring something? I'm pretty sure he played all 3 downs too. I don't think he was, if he rotated, that would be when Dorrance Armstrong came in. But I would be curious to look at him. I'm also intrigued by some guys on the interior. If we were to let John Allen go, if we were to move John Allen, I came up with this idea, what if we move him to defensive end? And the idea is we get bigger out there. Someone that 2 players that Adam Peters is pretty familiar with, Javon Hargrave and Javon Kinlaw. Both were in San Francisco.
Oh, yeah.
Not going to be big stat guys at this point in their careers, but could they be a productive rotational piece for us? Maybe. And then the dude is actually pretty productive in Dallas. Another guy, again, Dan Quinn effect, was, I can't pronounce this guy's last name, Osa O. Big number 97 from Dallas. If you're going to spend a little bit of money on it, I do think we need to be able to rotate within the draft and free agency, bring in some 1 to 2 new bodies along that defensive line.
Oh yeah, no, I'm right there with you, and I'm looking at some of these guys that potentially were decent in years past, but then also some of these guys are a little older, and like for instance, I'll put out a name, Calais Campbell. Always been a fan of him. Now I know he's 38. He's even plays another year, but with some of these older guys, just give me one. Just give me 1 year where you can help teach and then also just play that part. And if he's maybe on a defense that's doing well, okay, let's go with it. From the Giants, Azeez Ojulari. This is a guy that I wanted coming out of the draft. 4 years ago. Weren't able to get. He's done some things in New York, but nothing major. I would love to bring him in house and get him on a small deal. Like I would love to sit there and do that. Who else was I looking at?
I love that pick, by the way, Ojulari. Absolutely.
Oh yeah. I too am like you with the big name. This is the place where I would unstrap the wallet, open that bad boy up, and let's really go to, if we're going to go a Khalil Mack. I've always loved Khalil Mack out of Buffalo. So yes, that would be high, but at the same time, if we're getting what we paid for, it'll be well worth it. Bosa is another one like that. I've always loved Matthew Judon. I've been a fan of his when he, as he's played a lot of different. I think he was at New England before last year. Then he went to the Falcons. He's always been somebody that I've kind of followed around as somebody that's always been out of touch because he's going to decent teams or he's going where he can have an impact. I think he can come here and have an impact. Love the 2 that you picked, Preston Smith, DeMarcus Lawrence, anybody from Dallas. Okay, that's played under Quinn. I'd be okay with. Okay, you hear that, Micah? Come on over. All right.
$40 million.
I know exactly. That's where I'm like, But let me ask you this: would you, if for the right price and under the right tutelage, would you bring back Chase Young?
I wanted to talk to you about that. No. Because he's just a pass rush specialist at this point. and we need somebody to set the edge. And okay, no, I'll take that back. I mean, we would have to be drafting someone like Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M as a defensive lineman who doesn't have to rush the passer. And if Chase comes in that Dante Fowler role, sure. If he's not going to cost a lot of money, sure. But I'm not bringing Chase Young back to say you are starting defensive end and we've solved our defensive line problems. So let me answer it that way.
Oh yeah, and that's it. I will bring him back under certain stipulations. Okay, number one, it has to be in a team-friendly deal. It has to be on our payroll the way we want it. And number two, you need to forget everything you learned prior to coming into the league and in that time you had in Washington, and you need to totally fall in line. It's that simple, because this is not about the player. This is about the team. So if you're willing to do that, you've seen how once we moved on from you've hopped around. Mind you, with San Francisco, you got to a Super Bowl, so you were able to taste some of that success. But still, you see how dedicated they were to you. They shipped you out to the Saints. You know what I mean? Or you were able. They let you go. You were able to go. Right. So if you're coming here, I need you to be wanting to, earn this spot in Washington. So for me, no, I would bring him back under probation, like probationary period, honestly, because I think they've moved on from him, and I don't think it's easy. You don't go back to the X. Let's just say that.
Yes,
you don't go back to the X. You leave it alone.
Yes, yeah, I don't think it's happening. No. So I've got another position that I'm going to let you start off with first. What are we going to do at linebacker?
Honestly, at linebackers, this is a place where I want to look in the draft. I want to look for a younger guy, somebody that we can bring in-house, maybe to learn a little bit from the veterans that we have. Now,
Bobby Wagner's a free agent.
No, that's a prerequisite. I already thought we'd resign. I already thought we were going to resign him.
Oh, no, I don't know.
Yeah. No, my whole plan works with Wagner and Louvu.
Okay.
There. I need them teaching the younger guys. No.
That makes me okay. Thank you. That makes a little bit more sense. When you're like, I'm going in the draft, I'm like,
no. This is with us already pre-signing Bobby and making sure he's still there, because I want the younger guy to learn from him. My whole plan is surrounded by us re-signing Bobby Wagner and keeping him here for at least a year, if not 2 or 3. And then bringing in somebody on a cheap deal that can just be a sponge and learn from him.
Yeah.
That's where I'm focused. I don't even want to look into, what other linebackers are free agency or any of that. My main focus going into this offseason is re-signing him, re-signing Eckler, getting all these guys locked in. You know what I mean? Making sure they're all still here for another year or more. So, yeah. Where were you? Were you still going to go? I mean, obviously re-sign him, but.
I'm still interested in Bobby Wagner. Absolutely. I'm with you where, my gosh, if you can get, and this is what you were alluding to, a guy like Peyton Wilson or Nakobe Dean, there's always a middle linebacker that falls in the draft. That would be a great signing where we're basically stashing you. I'm really interested to see what they think of McGee and Hampton and how they fit on next year's roster. But along with Wagner, if you're going to spend money, if you're not able to get someone along the defensive line, I love Nick Bolton of the Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know if it's too redundant between Wagner, Bolton, and Louvu. I think you'd essentially have 2 middle linebackers out there, but I just see him thumping people in the run game all over the place. I did read a little bit where Louvu may have had to do a little bit more pass rushing than they anticipated. And so he could be helpful in the run game next year a little bit, but yeah, Bolton is just, to me, he's a stud. And so if, I would almost consider, if you can get Bolton, do you re-sign Wagner if you can get Bolton? If he's a younger leader, if that's where you put your money at, it would be hard. I would shed a tear to lose Bobby Wagner, but I'm very much intrigued by by Nick Bolton. Here's an old name out here as a linebacker. I don't know how much he's got in the take, but Shaq Thompson, dude has been involved in nothing but losses here in Carolina. Can we give him some wins on a team to come in as a rotational piece and help out a little bit? I don't know.
Oh, man, yeah. But so, like I was saying, after signing our guy, this is also a place, going back to the linebacker, where I am looking at maybe making that big move. You're talking about Bolton. I was talking about Mac. Maybe making that move to getting into Judo. Maybe like this is where I'm really, if I make a move outside, I'll get number one, Bobby. If I make a move outside and get another big guy to pair with him or somebody to come in house, depending, this is where I would do it. Other than that, I'm not really looking at some of these other guys, Kazir White and Devondre Campbell. I'm not really looking at, guys that might want to make a couple extra dollars or something like that. I like the Shaq Thompson thing, Willie Gay, Eric Kendricks, like a lot of these guys I like here and there, but I'm set with where we have. So I'm really trying to build on what we had. Like if we can bring in another big name dude, okay, let's have the best linebacker core in the league. That's fine. But if we're going to just re-sign Wagner, stick with Luvu like this, let's get a guy that we can draft. Let's get a guy that maybe was drafted last year, like you're talking about Peyton Wilson, and see if we can bring him in and have him learn and work in the system.
Right.
This is the place where I would move up, but not. Go ahead.
And I'm not going after Zach Bond in big money towards him. I think he's a great player in Philly. I don't know. No,
that sounds like a Raiders move. Let's sign the last year's Super Bowl MVP, our Super Bowl stud.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's a position you started with that we've got a free agent to sign or a player that's a free agent. So let's kind of solidify this. What are you doing at safety?
I honestly was happy with our safety play. I really didn't want to go much farther than that. I mean, there's a couple people that might potentially be available, like a Justin Simmons or Xavier Woods. I've always liked him.
Let me back up because Chin is a free agent, so we got to make a decision on him.
Well, and that's where. So I'm kind of in the middle on Chin. I mean, obviously it's been up and down in the beginning of the year. A lot of people were, he wasn't doing well. He got better towards the end. I think he fits well with what we're doing. But to the point of, you and Ab, I think we were talking about, can we get better at this position? Can we do that? And I'm looking around, and there's always been guys. I've talked to you about Xavier Woods year after year. I mean, there's been guys that are out there. But does it make us better? And what is it going to take if they come in-house, are they going to have to then learn the system? I think back to the Freaky Friday I did, ladies and gentlemen, on Fans First Sports Network, where I talked about Ryan Clark and how we had Ryan, and he had him in that year with him and Sean Taylor, and then unfortunately Sean had met his demise, and then Ryan was there, but Washington wanted to go elsewhere. We went and got Adam Archuleta, thinking that he was going to be great, but he didn't fit in the system that we were running. We let Ryan go. Ryan has Super Bowls in Pittsburgh. Adam Archuleta doesn't even play a full 16 games and then ends up leaving that next year. So it has to fit what we're doing. Jeremy Chin has been able to play, and it seems like he's gotten better in the system that we're running. So my first thought would be to talk to him and try to see what we're getting in-house, just because when I look at some of these players, a Justin Reed, a Justin Simmons, maybe they see something different and they have their eyes on somebody, but this is a place where I would first go into having conversations with Chin and try to re-sign him. And if we don't, let's see how it plays out. But I might even look in the draft for this one. I got a couple guys maybe that I can see coming in, but I just don't want to spend the big money right here, because I kind of like where we are at safety, because we're still young, we're working together, and I want those guys all to kind of mold together.
What are you, if you're keeping Chin, what are you keeping? So he signed a 1-year deal. What do you think are you offering him?
See, not even that much. That I don't.
So you're okay with if he gets bigger money elsewhere?
bigger money elsewhere. Yeah, I don't.
Mhm.
I was never really sold on Chin. I mean, I think he's improved throughout the season, but he's a take it or leave it guy for me. Like I don't know. I don't know. I'm not trying to give him 7, 8, 9 million. I'm not trying to, put him up that high, but
Well, he made
you
5
wanna
million
keep
this year, so
well,
it's
right.
not too
That's
much of a step up.
no, but if you want to keep him in house, is he worth staying? Is this the guy that you would? I mean, what do you think? Would you re-sign and keep him in, or would you take your chances elsewhere?
Yeah, no, I think he's a candidate to get a multi-year deal the way Frankie Louvu did, in a similar fashion there of like a 3-year, like you said, maybe 9 million a year, an upgrade from what he was making. I think he very much improved as the season went along. I do think there are other guys out there like the dude from the Vegas, Trayvon Morig, who dropped Taylor Heineke's pass in his breadbasket. I've always liked Andre Cisco of Jacksonville and Javon. Where is he at? Javon Holland of Miami, but they played the same position as our future Pro Bowler Quan Martin, so that's not going to help.
Future Pro Bowler.
I do have an interest in the dude from San Francisco, Hufanaga, just because, he's tough out there, but I think you don't getting somebody else other than Chin, I think is going to cost more. Whereas I think Chin may say, hey, you know what? I really started to play well towards the end of this. I will take a little bit less to stay here because in this system, he signed with us because he was like, Dan Quinn's got a good defense. I want to play for that. And I think there's an option for us to do that similar. So I'm kind of with you where I'm good keeping him. I don't want to spend a whole lot of money, but I think Chin is the safety I'd want to keep. Yeah. Let me ask you this. You said you got a couple guys in the draft. Who are you talking about here? Are you you're not talking about using the first round pick from the dude from South Carolina, are you?
No. It would be somewhere down the line. And again, some of these guys that I'm thinking, who knows? Again, it really has to do with what these guys are prioritizing. And this position for me, I've never. Like, I love where we are at this position with Quan and with Jeremy Chin. That's why I would want us to go get him. But again, I'm not trying to get him signed I don't want to break the bank to sign this guy for multi years. Like, I liked what he did throughout this season, but he still also struggled at times. So yes, that the 9 million multiple year, whatever. Yeah. Let's do that. Let's bring him in and stay for that. But at the same time, I was out on this guy from Illinois. What's his name? Quan Martin. Until somebody told me that he's going to have a meteoric rise and he has a pick 6 in the championship in a divisional game. So I was wrong. I'm not opposed to saying I was wrong. So if we can get a guy in house, I'm good with that. But yeah, no, I that's not somewhere where I want to spend up for. And I just like the mesh and the gel that we have there with those guys have played together and kind of having that culture, that same thing in house. So if we can just go ahead and solidify this deal and we're good. It's on the books. We can move on. I'm good with that. But I do want us to look in the draft, not high, not right, first round type thing. But I do want us to look in the draft at some point and see what can we do. And the other part is we don't know what Hampton's going to do. You know what I mean? Like, we don't know. You talked about that being somebody that's a project. Wait, what if him and McCaffrey are two guys that have year 2 explosions? You know what I mean? The first year they had a slump, and the second year they come out. So a lot of stuff is speculation and, wait and see. But if we can get Chin, let's just re-sign him, keep him in house, and let's just build around that.
Right. I'm with you.
Okay. So is there any places you're solely looking in the draft or free agency?
Yeah, I'm looking in the draft at our next running back. Absolutely draft only for me. Tight end, draft only. Yep. And I think there's a lot of intriguing guys out there to where it's exciting and like in the second round for a running back potentially. Maybe in the third round for a tight end potentially. It's kind of maybe a little early for a luxury pick there. I think I would like to bring some guys in for the draft in those positions.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Maybe second round draft. Maybe a Harold Fannin Jr. out of Bowling Green led the country and led all tight ends at I believe receptions and touchdowns, I think, or yards.
You would want a tight end over like a Travion Henderson or a Omarion Hampton.
Well, no. Well, first and foremost, Marion Hampton, we're going to get with our first pick overall. I don't know if you saw, but Washington's going North Carolina first pick overall. So we're definitely doing that. And I'm with you 100% about getting him right. If we could get an Omarion Hampton, which I don't think as much of a stretch, because figuring out where running backs go and how they're pretty much probably going to drop till later. And if we can keep him under wraps, and I'm glad he's not on a lot of people's radar. If we can get an Omarion Hampton,
I think he's on the radar.
He's starting to show up. I've seen it. I've seen some people say that he's an absolute gem, but I've also heard other people talking Ashton Genty and Travion Henderson and all these other guys. And I'm like, that's good. Yeah, go ahead. Keep talking about those guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I would 100% go Marion Hampton there. And at tight end, I would definitely look in the draft for it. You know, another place I'm really eager to look in the draft, and I really want to look in the draft, special teams. I want us to get a quality kicker. I mean, bring a couple guys in-house. Let's try them out, and let's get a quality kicker that we can work with throughout our time here, okay? And let's keep him, even if he might miss a couple field goals, a la when we had David Akers, and he missed a couple field goals, and then he
shout out Throwback Thursday.
Oh, yeah. I try to shout them all out then. But, yeah, no, that's somewhere where, I mean, I want us to re-sign Tress, keep him in-house, obviously, our MVP, our GOAT. But I want kicker. I want that to be somewhere where we can't go through 6 kickers again this year. And now that my old GOAT, Justin Tucker, looks like he's not going to be available any longer, I can't go in that direction. So I want a kicker.
I've got two kickers. I know I'm with you. I actually want us to go through the draft for kicker. Ryan Fitzgerald of Florida State. He hit on all 5 of his attempts over 50 yards, 13 of 13 on the season. The other guy, this is what I had seen. Caden Davis of Ole Miss. 24 of 29 on field goals, along at 57. He was 8 of 9 in the 40-yard range, 2 of 4, 50-plus. He's got a little bit of a leg. But, yeah, I'm with you. Like, I think it's Seibert and Gonzalez, like, there's a little bit of an issue with the lack of leg strength there.
Yes.
In today's NFL, you got to be able to kick a 55-yarder.
God, exactly.
If we have a chance of kicking a 55-yarder to win the game, you got to be able to do it.
Right.
And neither one of those guys can do it.
Right. Either that or bring back Joey Sly and just have him there to kick 50-plus yard field goals because we know he can do that. I mean, look, specialists. You need specialists. It's special teams, isn't it? You know?
Seibert kicks from 45 in. Sly kicks from 45 out, 46 out.
Hey, let's go. He wanted small contract to get him in there. I love it.
Right.
A couple other places we talked about in the draft, wide receiver. Definitely looking there to potentially not first. I mean, depending on who falls to us, we'll see. I think the luxury that we have right now is that we do have a little bit more open as far as what we choose in the draft. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. No, I got nothing.
Okay. And then D-line, I think that's somewhere that I'm looking at in the draft. And like I told you before, linebacker. That's somewhere where I want to get somebody that's going to come in.
Yes.
First, we got to get Wagner. Get these guys in, and let's get some guys to learn under them. What other places in the draft are you looking?
All the positions you said. I think the things we got to think about with the draft, and I'm going to say this later as we get closer to the draft and after free agency happens, is sometimes you also have to play based on what the draft gives you. And this year, the draft is very strong at tight end. So if we're worried about replacing a guy like Zach Ertz, well, then maybe we need to be getting someone earlier than you really, really need it to replace that guy. So there's a running back. This may not be the draft where you wait until the 4th and 5th round to get your Tyler Algier type guy who can come in and play. Is you go in the 2nd round because you've got guys like Hampton like Henderson, like Judkins, that, like Caleb Johnson, who can be big time players where it's worth going up for these guys. So that's kind of where I'm at, where it also depends on what the where's the draft strong.
Right. And that's what I'm intrigued to see. But again, a lot of this, we have to see what happens in free agency. A lot like what you were talking about. Let's see what the draft, where we're at that specific spot. And we got the combines here. Let's see who rises up, who falls in the combine, who's really excel and shine a light on. There might be guys that we don't even know that are coming up in the draft that might show out, and all of a sudden it's like, ooh, I like that guy. Or one of the things that I've noticed is it's not always just about the play when it comes to the combine. That interview that a lot of these guys do with the teams makes a big difference on where these teams go. If that guy is able to have a great interview and say the right things and know the playbook, know the system and everything. One of the things that I loved about Jaden last year is they said as soon as he got on the plane after getting drafted, he's in the playbook. He's studying that thing back and forward because he knows it's full time. This as soon as you're here and you keep it moving. And we saw what happened as a result of that. So that's something that that I'm interested in seeing what happens in the combine, but how some of these guys are when they're in these meetings and they're talking to these guys and seeing kind of the direction, because character is something that seems to be on a pedestal in Washington right now.
Yes.
Character and culture. And I absolutely love that because that's what is needed. That's what we were missing for all of those years. Yes. So I'm eager to see how this whole free agency and draft and all that stuff play out, man, because a lot of kind of what we're thinking now could totally be thrown out the window in a month or two.
Yeah. When we go through free agency, what we're looking at, that really is going to set the tone for the draft. I still think we're going to go best player available at times. Like there's going to be a pick or two that we're like, what? We got that guy? Right. Did we need to do that? But it is going to change based on whatever we do in free agency,
Mm-hmm. Do you, I know this might be sacrilegious to some. Do you look anywhere at any point for any maybe backup help at quarterback?
Yeah, sure. 6th, 7th round, something like that. If the guys are always going to fall at quarterback, sure. Because I think the idea is, we'll find out what happens with Mariota. Is there an opportunity for him to be a bridge starter someplace, or does he come back here? And obviously that deals with it a lot. I'm hoping if Mariota is here, because I'm looking at the list of quarterbacks. I mean, the only other quarterback this is kind of crazy, that I would bring in as a backup to Jayden Daniels, I'd bring in Daniel Jones. Yeah, you can make that face. It's okay.
I know.
But look at kind of how he played in New York. Does this not kind of seem like the offense that he could operate?
Yeah. That's why I made that face, because it's like I don't necessarily disagree with you. I just feel so weird.
Is he that much different than Mariota?
No, and he's younger.
I don't know if he is.
No.
I'm
surprised. I'm surprised you did. You're not going to go after your boy? You're not going to go after Tyler Heinicke?
I've got a stronger arm than Heinicke. No, I don't. No. Although that would be crazy. That'd be awesome. Don't get me so excited again like that. But I think, you hope that Sam Hartman can be QB3, but if somebody in the draft, drops and it's just like a Sam Hartman didn't get drafted, bring him in to compete.
Let me ask you this: what if we don't go? If Mariota does not re-sign, do you potentially bring in a Justin Fields to be backup?
I don't think he'd sign here. Sure, yes, I could. Yes, sure, as the backup. Yeah. But there'd be an understanding that there's zero chance for you to play, barring injury.
Well, and that's the other thing, because where we would stay fairly similar with the mobility, there would be a definite drop off in passing. And I mean, and I've been one of his more staunch supporters, and I'm like, nah, bro, it ain't happening. So that's where I'm kind of like, but this is all in the mindset of let's get guys that are similar skill sets to Jaden, and that's because that's what we think that they did.
But Trey Lance.
What are your thoughts on him? I've always been out on him. I didn't like him coming out of school.
I know.
Yeah.
I didn't see. Now, it was his only start or playing time in the game, but he had a chance to beat us in that game, and he missed some guys who were wide open. So
yeah,
I was like,
I've never been on board with him. So
get the guy who always beats us.
Coop. Look, that's a long list, Will. If we're talking about the guys that always beat us.
It is. What about Jameis Winston, or Jacoby Brissett as guys who can play that Mariota role? I'm so out.
Honestly,
on Jameis.
I would not be opposed to not Jameis. Jacoby Brissett. I wouldn't be opposed to that because what you're bringing is the same mindset, the same veteran mentality. He can work with Jaden. So, I mean, we saw how amazing he did last year when he had the great Sam Howell and how he worked well with him. I mean, that guy was amazing last year. Just
2 years ago.
Was it 2 years ago? God.
It was. How pissed off do you think Jacoby Brissett was when he signed with Washington with the chance to compete for a starter? Then Ron names Sam Howell the starter, and he's sitting here going, "This guy sucks, and I can do so much better." And then when he comes in towards those last 3-4 games, the offense moves, and he's probably like, "I could have told you all. I could have told you I was going to do this, right? I could have won you 7 games, guys."
I would have been fine if they would have sat my guy Sam as backup and then let Jacoby be the starter, okay? And then if they would have taken him out, I just felt like my guy was set up from the beginning. From the start, they set my guy up. But it's all good.
They set him up when they signed Eric Bieniemy as offensive coordinator, unfortunately. Hindsight, looking back, that guy had no interest in blocking schemes for the quarterback. Almost worse than Steve Spurrier.
Yeah, it was rough. It was rough. Man. Oh, my goodness gracious. All right, Will.
We went way further longer than we were supposed to.
We really did.
We weren't supposed to get into the draft talk at all.
That's how this happens when we're talking off season. Let's go. Oh, my goodness. Ladies and gentlemen, appreciate you guys. It's a few of you that have stuck with us over this 2-hour stretch, talking about the draft, talking about the season, where we're going from here, talking about free agency. Again, all of this speculation, a lot of this stuff will will change depending on who gets re-signed, who gets franchise tagged, what players decide to retire, X, Y, and Z. There's so many new things out there that we'll see. Stay tuned because we have so much coming, but not just here on YouTube. Will, where else can they find us?
Yeah, on Twitter X at Wash FB Weekly is where we will post clips. We will post the segments here for you to see us. But on Spotify and Apple at Washington Football Weekly, we will post the full shows like we just did here. We will clip up some of the shows for certain segments. Sean does some great jobs with Throwback Thursdays and Freaky Fridays, where he talks about former players to reminisce about, and maybe folks we shouldn't have brought in or let go that we shouldn't have. Antonio Pierce, that'd be a great one to talk about at some point. But yeah, so there's additional content on Apple and Spotify. If you follow us there, you'll be able to see that. And we appreciate you tuning in for this.
Oh yeah. And listen, for those of you that are looking for the latest episode of Throwback Thursday, it is coming up, and I want you to remember the name Joe Lavender, ladies and gentlemen. Joe Lavender, guy's a Super Bowl champion. That's all you need to know. But he will be on Throwback Thursday this week. But look, we got to go ahead and get out of here now that we've taken up 2 hours of your life. Hopefully it was good for you. But for my guy, South Carolina's finest, Will Kramer, it's your boy, Sean Spencer. We will be back with you this off season. Stay tuned. There's a lot of news and notes coming out, and we'll be here with you for all of it. But we got to head out. So as we always do, left hand up. We'll see you on the flip side.
Gibbs, you got a good chance. Let me tell you something about some good fans. Back in the day, Agra JFK was our palace. If you don't know, you need to ask about us. Think we're gonna lose.